This is the Johnny Cleveland Podcast, all things Cleveland sports, with your host, John Suchan. Hey, and good evening, and welcome to another edition of the Johnny Cleveland Podcast. This is your Saturday night live edition. It is a late evening on January 5th, 2024 of all. My. Time flies when you're having some fun. Let me get my tunes here playing. We got a little bit of, what is this music called? We're calling this Intro to Space music. Does it sound like space? I do not know, but it's a late night here in the Buckeye State. The Buckeye State, where the Cleveland Browns will be battling the Cincinnati Bengals tomorrow afternoon, 1 o'clock down there in Cincinnati, the Battle of Ohio. The Browns will be resting many of their starters in this contest. The Cincinnati Bengals, they don't have a lot to be played for, but I'm imagine that they want to get this win for the Battle of Ohio. Plus, I have Joe Nixon running back on my fantasy league team. We're in my one team's in the championship, so I'm kind of hoping that Mixon plays. We shall see. Hey, you've joined us here on the Fanatical Elves Network, part of the Fans First Sports Network. I'm wearing my Cavs gear plus my Brownie the Elf hat. I was actually out and about at one of the stores locally around here this evening, and I had a Browns fan describe my hat as sexy. Yes, a sexy elf hat. Don't know if you've ever had your hat described as a sexy look, but caught me a little bit off guard. But Browns fans are united. Browns fans are excited because the Browns are going to the playoffs. Now, the Pittsburgh Squealers played the Baltimore Ratbirds earlier this afternoon, and the Squealers and Mason Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer beat the Ratbirds in a rather ugly affair. I didn't really pay much attention to it because I loathe both teams mightily. Pittsburgh escaped, and Mike Tomlin again continues to have his millionth season of over 500 records. It is impressive. I think it's his 19 seasons now. He's a great coach. I hate his football team. I don't care for him. But it is an impressive. So I do give some respect in that manner, but that's about it when it comes about giving respect to anybody in the AFC North, especially those Squealers. So the Squealers have to get some help to get into the playoffs. They need Jacksonville to lose tomorrow to the Tennessee Titans. They also need the Buffalo Bills to lose to the Miami Dolphins over there in Miami tomorrow evening. So there's a lot going on, including tonight's game between the Houston Texans and the Indianapolis Colts, and a game that's in Indy tonight. The Texans, however, are pretty much dominating this game. And look, if they win, they're in the playoff. And so look for them to be in the playoffs. C.J. Stroud opened the game. Former Buckeye quarterback for Ohio State in his rookie season is having an outstanding year. Threw a 75-yard bomb to Nico Collins, a former player from that team from up north. I hate those players from the team up north. So C.J. Stroud off to a hot start. The Colts just aren't very good. They got Gardner Minshew with his dazzling mustache at quarterback. And while a lot of people were predicting Indianapolis was going to get into the playoffs, it does not look like they're going to do that tonight. So it'll be Houston probably getting that 7 seed. So who's going to get the 6th seed? Well, who gets the 6th seed is the loser of the Buffalo-Miami game. So if that happens, Well, and it depends also. There's a couple other factors, like I just mentioned with Pittsburgh. So I'm going to hold off on that 6th seed because I don't know every little detail there. But all I know is I don't want the Squealers to make it into the playoffs. And Houston, if they win tonight, will be in the playoffs somewhere. The Browns are locked in at the 5 seed. They will play the winner of the AFC South. So that could either be Houston, who's going to win tonight, or or Jacksonville if they take care of business and beat Tennessee. But it's the NFL. Anything can happen. So we'll just see how it all pans out. Switching back to the Cavaliers, I just wanted to, this is my Johnny Cleveland show, and we talk about the Browns. We also throw in a little bit of other news in Cleveland. It's funny. I write about the Cavaliers for King James Gospel, and I wrote an article for them, probably about a week ago. And in the title of the article, basically, I had the word mediocre, that the Cavs, these Cavaliers that you're watching, are having a mediocre, a pedestrian kind of season. Well, I got a lot of blowback from a lot of idiot people out there who don't read the articles. They just like to comment on the words that are used in the title. And then they describe the articles that I take time to write as trash and as using other profanity laced words because they don't have the ability to read because they just don't care to, because they troll and that's what they do. So it's too bad, because if you read the article, yes, I did describe the season as pedestrian, as mediocre. And yes, the Cavaliers have been dealing with a handful, many various injuries with the team, including 2 stars, Darius Garland and Evan Mobley. And yes, any team would struggle if they are missing a couple of their best players, their starters. But it's okay to call a season like the Cavaliers are having pedestrian. There are reasons for it to be pedestrian, but guess what, folks? It is a pedestrian, mediocre season. I don't know how you else want to describe it, but I'm gonna guess that however you want to, you're giving excuses for a team that's quite frankly just not doing very well. They've won some good games, and recently they've beaten some teams that they should win and beat, including the Washington Wizards. I think they beat them 2 games in a row. But they stand at 20 wins and 15 losses, and they're seeded number 8 in the NBA playoffs if they were to start today, which isn't bad. I'm pulling that up here, so let's see here. But again, it's not great. And so I'm not going to say it's a great season for the Cavaliers. I'm not even going to say it's a good season, considering that the Cavaliers have been to the postseason. Last year, they were the 4 seed and were considered a lock, going to beat the Knicks, and the Knicks took care of business and wiped them off the floor before the series could even get started. So there have been high expectations for this team, especially because of a player like Donovan Mitchell coming in, and they have not done what they were asked to do. And then this year has carried over, and they are just playing not the greatest. And yes, they have injuries, but those are excuses, and you have to move forward. And this team is struggling. And if Cavs fans can't admit to that, or see that the inconsistencies aren't always, yes, due to injuries. What about the inconsistencies of the players, of the coach, J.B. Bickerstaff? I don't like his coaching. I don't agree with a lot of the way that he does, how he handles his basketball team. And I believe that has a lot to do with why the Cavs are just a pedestrian, mediocre team. So all of you who like to trash articles, mine and others, just because of a headline or just because of, this website, you should spend some quality time learning how to write. If you really want to be a journalist, then go ahead and take some classes, take some lessons, and learn how to write. And then you can write those great articles, and then hopefully other people won't trash them like you like to trash others. Just a word of advice out there. So back to the Browns and the Bengals. We have the Battle of Ohio coming up tomorrow, and it's going to be Jeff Driscoll for the Brownies. Yes, that's right. You probably didn't have him on your bingo card at the beginning of the Browns season, but Jeff Driscoll, the journeyman, who has started, I think, 9 games, or 10 games. He's like 1-8, 1-9 in starts. He has played for a variety of teams, including the Cincinnati Bengals when he stepped in for Andy Dalton back in the 2018 season. He will be starting for the Cleveland Browns tomorrow down in Cincinnati. So get your popcorn, gather up. It's going to be a probably boring game. The Bengals will obviously, want to get back and beat the Browns. They got humiliated when they came up here to Cleveland in week 1. And so we'll see how it all plays out. The weather's going to be cold. They're calling for flurries and some things, but nothing extraordinarily bad. And so hopefully we'll see a good game. Hopefully not a boring game like I'm predicting, but it doesn't have any influence on where the Browns land in the playoffs. We already know that they're locked in at the 5 seed. So we'll talk more about this Bengals-Browns series, and especially historically, for those of you who don't know much about that series. We're going to pause for a quick break here on the Johnny Cleveland podcast, part of Fans First Sports Network and the Fanatical Elves. We are back on the Johnny Cleveland podcast, part of the Fanatical Elves Network and Fans First Sports Network. I talked to this guy that liked my hat earlier, my Brownie the Elf hat. He Browns fan described it as sexy. I told him about our Fanatical Elves Network, and so if you're watching us right now on YouTube, or on the X, or on Facebook, or tune in also to Apple and Spotify and iHeartRadio. We're there, folks. All you got to do is type in Cleveland Browns and boom, the Fanatical Elves Network pops up. Or just type in Fanatical Elves and it'll pop up as well. And then follow us, subscribe to us, and you'll never miss a show. We're trying to get some more stuff on YouTube. I know a lot of you like to watch things and listen to things through YouTube, so we're going to try to do that more as we go into this new year. We've started this adventure back last April of 2023 and have grown by leaps and bounds because you guys are following us and you're spreading the word of our podcasting network. So thank you so much. Tomorrow, the Browns will have a pregame show coming up early, about 10:30 Eastern, 11 o'clock Eastern in the morning. So tune in for that. I'll be there with Steve Gill and a few of our other contributors. Hopefully, here on the Fanatical Elves, we got so many shows. Hopefully, you watch some of them or listen to them. What the Elf Was That? The Browniacs, the Browns Breakdowns, the Browns Blitz, Dog Pound South podcast, this Johnny Cleveland podcast, the Oracle Speaks. So just tune in. You can find what show you want to listen to. Maybe you prefer a certain guy that has his podcast over another. Hopefully you like this Johnny Cleveland podcast. And thank you. So the Browns and the Bengals have actually started playing this series. A lot of people don't know the complete history of the whole series, but it started because Paul Brown, who founded the Browns, decided to go down to he created his own team in Cincinnati, and it started back in 1970 actually. Let me pull. I wasn't going to look at this. Here we go. So they started this series back in 1970, and from that start, the Browns dominated. That first year, they won the first game in Cleveland, 30-27. That was in October of 1970. Later on in the month of November, they traveled down to Cincinnati, and actually the Bengals won that game. But then the Browns run off a string of wins all the way through the 1973 season. And so they were in the beginning of the series, they were, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They were 7 wins and 2 losses. So the first 9 games, they went 7-2 in that series. So they were pretty much dominating that series. Then Cincinnati ran off a series of wins between 74, 75, back and forth, then really for a large chunk of time. And it's been bouncing back and forth. If you go back and look at all the different games, there's a stretch in the early 1990s that the 92, 93, 94, 95, where the Browns really were dominating. They won, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 games in a row between the 1993 season or the 92 season and the 95 season. And then you bring it all the way up here. You currently look at where the Browns are, and even though they got Joe Schmo down there in Cincinnati, the Browns are, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They are 7-1 since 2018. Yep, I said that right. If you did not know this, the Browns are 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They're 6-1 under Stefanski. Oh, wait a second. Nope, I read that wrong. Pardon. They are even better. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They are 9. They have won 9 games and only lost 2 since the 2018 season. Under Kevin Stefanski, we've talked about this before on this show. And since the 2020 season arrived, Stefanski started out by winning 5 in a row over the Bengals. And their only loss, so Stefanski is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He is 6-1. He is 6-1 against the Bengals since he started. The only loss was last Christmas when they lost down in Cincinnati 23-10. So he is again 6-1 in his career against the Bengals. That's not bad, folks. And we're in the swing where the Browns have really been dominated. And even before that, like I said, they had won 3 games before his entry. So good for them. And will that trend continue? These are the sorts of things that you look at. And so on one hand, you think about this team. They're not going to have their starters. They're going to rest Joe Flacco and Amari Cooper and probably the running back, Jerome Ford. Pierre Strong, who a lot of people talk about and are more interested in to see what kind of back he is. He may get the bulk of carries tomorrow. We'll talk more about that on our pregame show with Steve Gill. I'm anxious to kind of see Pierre Strong. I'm a real proponent of his and think that he could do a lot more, and I'm hoping the Browns give him an opportunity. So yeah, I'm a Browns fan, like you. And this is the Johnny Cleveland podcast, and we are pro Cleveland. So yes, I think the Browns are going to go out and they're going to win even with their backups. And we'll see. Changing a little bit of a tune before we leave tonight, I did want to address just Jim Schwartz. Jim Schwartz came out earlier this week, the defensive coordinator of the Cleveland Browns, and did say that the ultimate goal for him is to get back to becoming a head coach, to strive to be at the top. He didn't specify being a head coach, but he said something to the effect of you're striving to be at the top of your game. And so a lot of people took that to mean like the dude's leaving Cleveland. And it kind of surprised me. And I don't, I'm just because, he's not a young guy anymore. I don't know exactly how old he is. We could do a Wikipedia search, but he's older than I, and I'm in my mid 50s. So, I thought maybe he'd want to stick around, especially if the Browns have success, and they've already been having success with him. They get into the postseason. Let's say they get a win or 2 or 3 or get to that Super Bowl. But sounds to me, and sounds like the people within the organization are planning on him possibly leaving, and that's tough because I seriously believe, and I'm like many of you, that this Browns defense had a lot of the same personnel a year ago and the year before that, but with Jim's not Woods. What is Woods' first name? Jim Woods? No. Why can't I think of it? Anyway, prior to Schwartz's arrival, we were, good defense, but not great. And now it's become great. And so if we lose Schwartz, the irrational Browns fan, am a little worried again. Hearing that, I was surprised he publicly came out and said that, considering what a great ride this team has made under his coaching. I didn't like the timing of it. I mean, I know he's answering questions, but till the postseason gets through and the Browns, I feel like it kind of puts a little damper on everything a bit, knowing that this guy's still looking to go back to becoming a head coach. I'm not saying I don't agree with, if he wants to be a head coach, great, but I was hoping that he maybe was done with that. He wasn't very successful as a head coach, and maybe he wants to prove to other people that he can still be the head coach. Hey, being a head coach is tough, man. I coach basketball, and I'm a head coach at the JV level on a high school group, and being a head coach at the varsity level. I mean, there's a lot of expectations, and not the same thing. But then you look at pro sports and college sports, and you look at these head coaches. There's a ton of pressure on these guys, and you think about the NFL and Kevin Stefanski, and how he has done and dealt with all these various things coming at him, from player issues to the organizational issues. It's really fascinating to see how some of these head coaches can survive. And we talked about Mike Tomlin earlier with the Pittsburgh Squealers. It's impressive, just because he's lasted 19 seasons, and the ups and downs is crazy. And now Stefanski, year 4, is steadying. He's steady Eddie, and he's going to be brought back. He's going to get an extension, and that's good for the Browns organization. So I'm happy for that too. But this news with Jim Schwartz is disheartening, and I wish him well wherever he lands after this season. Certainly doesn't sound like the way that he talked about it and the way other teams in the league look at him, I'm pretty sure he'll get swept up this off season. So I'm hoping, crossing our fingers like you are, that this Browns team can get going through this postseason. And but we first got to play the Bungles tomorrow down in Cincinnati. So we'll see how that all goes. I appreciate you tuning in to the Johnny Cleveland podcast, the late Saturday Night Live episode. We'll be back in the morning with our pregame show leading up to the Browns playing the Bengals at 1:00. And then we'll have our postgame show after. Take care, everybody. And remember to, that's right, keep smiling.